Guys, coming against me another movie for you guys, continuing my reviews of the Muppet movies. Now, this movie we're reviewing, I was definitely looking forward to it. Of course, after the Great Muppet Caper, it was a huge success, but basically the Muppet Show ended after that movie, and Jim Henson wanted to focus more on a movie career, and kind of put the Muppets aside for a while, and he made, like, The Dark Crystal, Labyrinth. Frank Oz even was Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back, if you guys didn't know that, which you should. But finally, 2 years later, the Muppets finally returned with the 1984 musical dramedy. I actually think this movie's a dramedy. The Muppets Take Manhattan. Muppets Take Manhattan. This movie was, I think, the first Muppet movie I watched. I'm pretty sure it was. I don't think I saw another one before this. I think this was pretty much the first one I watched, and the problem is, I was really looking forward to this, but I was also not looking forward to it, because, one, I was looking forward to it because, hello, it's about Broadway and things like that, putting on a show, but I also knew that when I was younger, this was my favorite Muppet film. And that's not good, usually, because as you guys know, as I've revisited these films, I found more and more things to love about them. And I was really hoping this movie would continue that. And I have to say, while I do think The Muppets Take Manhattan is a great movie, it very much is a drastic step down from the last movie, from the last two movies. You can definitely tell things are very different here. They try to do some very different things. They had some really cool ideas, but a lot of them really don't work, and I'm gonna get into that. First of all, let's get to the plot of this movie, which I actually really do like. Some people think the plot is silly, but again, guys, you have to think of these Muppet films as standalone films. They are standalone, they don't connect in any way, they're just the Muppets doing a film, playing different characters. But they're playing, their characters, but just in a different setting, different story, things like that. Well, in this movie, basically, Kermit and the gang are college graduates. They've just graduated college, and basically, Kermit was performing this musical with all his friends called Manhattan Melodies before they left, basically, for this senior showcase, I think it was. I think that's what they called it. But basically, he's asked by an audience member to take it to Broadway, and this basically inspires him to take it to Broadway, and basically they decide to do whatever they can to take this musical to Broadway. However, after not having the funds, they all basically split up, and Kermit, though, still decides to take this show to Broadway, do whatever he can to make sure it happens, and that basically is the plot of The Muppets Take Manhattan. Now, the plot it sounds very compelling, and there are some things I definitely really do love about this film, and we're going to get into that. First of all, let's get into the acting in this movie, which is obviously great. It's the Muppets. It is definitely great. They do actually do some things in this movie that's different from the first two, which I actually really do like. Basically, first of all, I do want to say that the movie mainly focuses on Kermit. It mainly does focus on Kermit. Obviously, he is the main character, and his character in the movie is really great. I love the determination that he had, the way that no matter what happened, he wanted to put on the show and wanted it to be the best possible show it could be. It's really well done the way they handled it. I thought they did a really great job with that, and I definitely really appreciated that. And I thought he was really good. Everyone else in the movie, Frank Oz, of course, as Miss Piggy, is really great as well. I think he always does a great job, definitely. But I think everyone else in the movie is really just good. My biggest problem, though, is the ensemble Muppets. They really don't have much to do in this movie. The first 20 minutes, they're all together, but after I'd say like 20 minutes into this movie, they all depart, and we don't really see them until the third act of this movie. And it really is a problem for me, because the movie basically only relies on Kermit and the human characters, which I do enjoy, but it just felt like we were missing something. I'm gonna get into this. I do have to say, though, the humans in this movie, the actual actors, are very strong. I think they all did a great job. Louis Zorick as Pete was one of the funniest characters in the movie by far. He works at this place called Pete's Diner, basically, and it's run by Rizzo and the Rats. Rizzo is basically now a full-fledged character, and they have some of the funniest stuff in the movie. He was a really great character. He was very funny. And Juliana Donald as Jenny, I really liked as well. She basically wants to be this fashion designer, but she also really wants to help Kermit with his show and does whatever she can to help him get the money that he needs. And I thought she did a really great job, and the bonding between them is really great, and I definitely really enjoyed that. Um, However, the cameos in this movie kind of feel out of place. They do kind of feel watered down, and it did just kind of feel like they wanted to have some cameos in there. There really aren't any that I found that memorable. I really didn't. I think some of them were funny, but they just weren't as funny as they could have been. There's a scene with Joan Rivers that I felt went on way too long. It really wasn't that funny. And there's so many that could have been a lot funnier than they were, and I just didn't feel they did enough with them. So basically, the acting is good for the most part. I'll get into my problems when we get into the screenplay. Now, the directing by Frank Oz, I don't have a problem with. The last movie, of course, was directed by Jim Henson, so it really only made sense for this one to be directed by Frank Oz, and I think he did a really good job for the most part. Oh, also, I would say this would be Jim Henson's final Muppet film, because he would die shortly after this movie was made, and there wouldn't be another Muppet movie till, I believe, like the 90s when Muppet Christmas Carol came out, which I won't be reviewing. I'll be reviewing that in Christmas. Next one I'll be reviewing is Muppet Treasure Island, but I think he did a really good job directing. He knew the story. He knows the Muppets. He obviously plays half of them, so he knows them. But I did feel that the tone he tried to have in this movie really didn't work for me. I think some things he did, some of the directions he took, were good ideas, but they really didn't work very well. This mainly is because of the screenplay, which is very good, but also I don't really like. What I really do like is the emotional direction this film takes. This movie surprisingly goes in some very dark directions. I mean, there are some very dark things that happen in this movie toward the beginning. It's actually very realistic what ends up happening to them, with them, having to split up and everything. It's very sad to watch, and I really enjoyed watching that. And what I also really love is what they do with Kermit as a character, because, the other two films, he had some really great stuff to do, but here he is a lot more of an emotional, vulnerable figure, I think, because everyone else leaves, and he kind of sticks around to do the show anyway, because he wants to show them that they shouldn't give up and that they should get this to Broadway, and I thought that was very well done, and I definitely did really enjoy that. My problem is I didn't find the screenplay really that funny. I didn't. I mean, what's the one thing these Muppet films are supposed to have? They're supposed to be funny, and I really didn't find this that funny. There might have been some scenes that had me chuckle every now and again, but there wasn't anything where I'm like, oh my god, that's hilarious. I mean, there was some stuff with Rizzo and the rats. There's this great scene with them scatting. I found that stuff very funny, but a lot of the scenes I didn't find funny. I will say there are some really funny scenes in this movie. When this movie is funny, it's hilarious. But what I really feel, as I said, the movie's missing the most of is the ensemble Muppets. A lot of them are to the side in this movie. They really don't have much to do, and they try to make up for that by having Kermit read letters that they send him. It really didn't work for me, though, because they only had, like, one scene, and it didn't really do much. Fozzie, as a character, really has nothing to do in this movie. I didn't find Fozzie to have really anything that funny, and the only thing I found with him that was funny was that he was kind of naive at points. That I really thought was, the only thing that he really got in this movie. The other characters really don't have much to do, and it kind of sucks, because the one thing you want in a Muppet movie is the ensemble. I mean, yeah, Kermit and Miss Piggy are great, but the entire film pretty much relies on them, besides the fact that the Muppets are in the beginning and the end, and that really sucked for me, and I didn't really find the story as compelling as I should have. That's a problem, guys, and you know why. Broadway and theater is my life. It really is. I mean, that's all I think about. I mean, Broadway and theater, that's what I want to do when I get out of high school. That's what I want to do with my life. And this movie, I didn't find that interesting. That's a problem. It just wasn't nearly as interesting as it should have been, and I found it kind of uninteresting at times. It really was kind of slow moving for me. I will admit, though, like I said, when the movie's funny, it's funny, but towards the third act, it really did start to pick up when they had this fantastic twist, which I'm pretty sure you guys know the twist with Kermit getting amnesia. He gets hit by the car. They finally get someone to do the show. It seems like everything's going right, but then, bam, Kermit gets hit by the car and is in amnesia. My problem with this, though, is that I felt like they should have done this a lot earlier into the film, and that could have been a much more compelling plot. Is Kermit going through this amnesia, and not knowing who he is, even though he really wanted this. That I think could have been a lot better than what we essentially get, which for a while is just Kermit going to these different people trying to get them to pitch the show, and it's just not working. I like the realistic tone, but that just really didn't work for me. And there were some really funny scenes toward the third half of this film. There is this one scene where Kermit basically doesn't know who he is. He's this guy Phil. He meets these four other frogs, and I don't want to spoil it, but it's like a name play situation. They all basically have sort of the same name. It's hilarious to watch, and it's one of the funniest scenes in the movie by far. I thought that was definitely very well done. So the screenplay for me really is very, I kind of have a love-hate relation with it. There are some things I really love and some things I really don't like about it. The cinematography is obviously great, but I didn't really feel they took as much advantage with this movie. They had such a big budget in The Great Muppet Caper. I mean, they did so much with them. They had, like, them doing tricks on bikes. They had ensembles, and this, it kind of feels a bit watered down. I am impressed by what they can do with these puppets, but at this point, it's like, alright, I can see what you can do, but I felt like they should have shown what they can do, because that's some of the fun of the other movies, is just seeing what they can do with these puppets, and showing how they can make them just more than puppets, and make them actual characters. And while they are actual characters in this movie, I felt they were honestly too human. I really did. I felt they were way too human. They didn't feel as different as they should be, and it also really didn't work. Also, I forgot to say, that breaking the fourth wall stuff is gone in this movie. Everything in this movie, you're supposed to take it seriously, you're supposed to understand the story. There's no poking fun, and that was a huge problem for me. I'm not saying you should just throw out breaking the fourth wall lines every single time, but now and again, at least maybe crack a few, because there could have been some scenes where I think they could have done that, and I really feel they didn't take that advantage that they could. My biggest problem with this movie by far is the music. Now, let me say this. I love the music in this movie. But again, this movie is about the Muppets going to Broadway, and it only has about 5 songs. I mean, really, it seemed like they just, I don't know why, but this movie has the least amount of songs, and it's crazy. It's about Broadway. You would think that the musical numbers would be big, and just as big as the Great Muppet Caper. You would think the Great Muppet Caper's from the Muppets Take Manhattan, the Muppets Take Manhattan's from the Great Muppet Caper. That's what you would think. Now, there are some fantastic scenes in this movie, fantastic, musical scores, like Saying Goodbye. I mean, that's a song that's just Muppets singing about departing, but it's so sad, and you get so teary-eyed, and it's one of the best moments in the film. Another one of the best moments of the film is, of course, the Muppet Baby sequence. It's fantastic to watch. There are some really great songs. When the songs are great, they are great, but I just didn't feel they used enough of them, and it just... I want to see the Muppets sing. That's what I want. I want to see singing Muppets. I don't want to see Muppets that just sing for a while and then just go away. There really aren't that many memorable musical numbers besides those two I mentioned, and the finale. The finale's pretty good as well, but I just felt they really could have done more with the musical score, and they didn't. I was pretty disappointed. I was like, come on, there need to be more songs in here. Like, it's called The Muppets Take Manhattan. They're in Broadway. They're in New York. Do those big production numbers. Get that big ensemble you had in the last movie. It's gone in this movie. That huge ensemble they had, that huge budget, it seemed like they had, like, no budget to this movie whatsoever. This honestly felt cheaper than the Muppet Movie. The Muppet Movie, they didn't really have much of a budget to. This felt like they had a much, like, that seemed like they had the same budget as the Muppet Movie, and I don't know if that's true. I really don't. They had a budget of $8 million. I don't know how much the Muppet Movie had, but I don't really feel they used the Muppets to their full potential, and they could have done a lot more with it. The editing as well felt very all over the place, felt very choppy at times. And I have to say, the movie really didn't go by for me. The third act it did, but the second half I was kind of like, all right, move it along. It got very slow and very uninteresting. However, I will say, a lot of people have problems with the ending of this movie. I really like it. I know some people think it's really stupid. If you guys don't know, Kermit and Miss Piggy do get married at the end of this movie, because basically Miss Piggy gets an actual minister to play the minister of the movie, of the last scene in their show, which I think is pretty funny. But again, guys, remember, this is just a standalone Muppet film, so I really don't have a problem with the continuity. There is really no continuity whatsoever because, again, these films don't connect in any way. And because of that, I don't really have a problem with the ending at all. I think it's actually pretty funny, and I think it's a good way they do that. I thought it was a good way to close the film, and I definitely like the way they handled that. I thought overall that was a good ending, and I enjoyed it for the most part. So overall, guys, the Muppets Take Manhattan, I don't think is as good as the other Muppet movies. I really feel it has a lot of problems. They could have done a lot more with it, but unfortunately, it's only focused really on Kermit and Miss Piggy, which Miss Piggy, I forgot to say, does have some funny stuff, like her being jealous of Jenny. I like seeing that. I thought that was pretty funny. But they don't even do enough of that. That kind of just comes out of nowhere, and I didn't really feel they did enough of that, really. And because they didn't really focus on the Muppets as much, it really made me not enjoy the movie as much. But I still really did love this movie, guys, I have to say. It's the Muppets. I obviously really did love it. And I still would give the Muppets Take Manhattan a a 4 out of 5 or a B plus. It is still a really great film. It has a lot of problems. You can definitely tell this series is starting to go downhill a bit because we are getting to those movies where they kind of were running out of ideas. And then, of course, they picked themselves up with the Muppets, but, you know, from this point, you could tell they were starting to run out of ideas, like once you hit Muppet Treasure Island, which is going to be a next film I review. But let me know what you guys thought of this movie. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, because I think it's a movie that I know a lot of people love, but I personally have a lot of problems with it. Not as many as some people do, but I definitely do have a lot of problems with it. But that's basically this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for the season finale of Mr. Robot, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.